Okay, today's lesson is going to be on looking at the strength of different countries. So, is it the United States, China, or another? What are the most powerful nations in the world? And maybe not just what are the most powerful, but how do we measure how powerful a country is? Think about this in perspective when you look at Rome. Rome was so powerful for its time. How about today? How do we measure that power? We have a few targets today to go along with the lesson. Let me make sure we get back to number 1 here. Okay, sorry, I had a little glitch on my computer here where it wasn't moving. Target number 1, I can identify characteristics that determine the strength of a nation. Target 2, I can identify which country I feel is more powerful, China or America. And target 3, I can explain which country I feel will be the most powerful in 10, 50, and 100 years. So what we're going to do is we're going to use specific measures that we can find on a website that is known as the CIA World Factbook. If you Google search CIA World Factbook, you'll find it there. So we're going to look at a lot of different things, maybe something about the land itself, could be the people, their military, education, and other things. Let's just get into some of the details. This is the sheet you're going to be working with, and if you would, over in this area underneath each of these measures, you can write in a couple notes if you would like, just to make sure you understand what they are. And while area might be really clear, it's that many square kilometers, when you get to something like infant mortality rate, GDP, those are a little bit less clear, so make sure that you pay attention for those. Let's start off with, and there's our nice little animation that I forgot to include, area. Area is literally how large a nation is, so that's something pretty straightforward. Population, how many people do we have that live in this country? It goes from 48 at the Pitcairn Islands to over 1 billion in a couple countries. Population growth rate, in other words, what percent of the population is growing each year? So if you're at 1% growth, that means an extra 1% of your population comes about every year. Infant mortality rate tells you how many children die per 1,000 live births. If it's 6.06, you're looking at less than 1% of babies. So put this in and divide it through, and you'll get a clearer percentage on it. Life expectancy is telling you how long people are expected to live. Literacy rate, the population that can read. There's our definition, age 15 and over. And it is different for boys and girls, as is education, total years. GDP stands for gross domestic product. It's basically how much is our economy and our businesses in a country producing in a year. We then can divide that by person to see where countries have the most productivity. That's really what it is. GDP per capita as well as infant mortality rate are two of the most commonly used indicators of the strength of a nation. Labor force, how many people do we have that can work? And then unemployment rate, what percentage of the people who can work cannot find a job? That's not a good one, so you want that one to be low. Population in poverty. Here's a definition. Poverty means it's a minimum level of income that is seen to be adequate. So it's not the same amount of money in every nation, because we would say, wait a minute, a person can make $10,000 in America and be under the poverty line, yet in some countries they can make they can make $500 and be okay. So interesting way to look at it. Public debt as a percent of GDP. This is looking at how much debt do we have based upon how much we're actually producing. So that compares, it's almost like an income versus expense type of look, but a little bit different. Internet users. How many people use the internet in a country? That tells you a little bit about a country's advancement, so something to think about from that perspective. The number of soldiers active in reserve. How many people are ready in case a country goes to war? That's important whenever you think about war, but maybe not for other things. And we also have number of males fit for military. So in case a war came about, how many more males would we have who are ready to go to war? Number of citizens in prison. That tells us a lot about crime. And crime is something that people use oftentimes to determine the strength of a country. And homicide rates, similarly. Homicide is killing somebody intentionally. So what are those rates? Are they higher? Are they lower? We want that to be low, obviously. So when we look at it, those are some measures for the success of a country and the strength of a country. Make sure you understand them prior to coming to class tomorrow, because they will be important for you to understand whenever we start looking at things in greater depth. Okay, there we go. Have a good day.